Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for Monday, the 18th day of October, 2021. Well, I did this once and got about 26 minutes in. I started talking about the challenge cards, so I got that far, and everything froze. So rather than it broke my concentration to the point that I'm going to keep everything. I've not drawn the benefit card yet, so that's still unknown. But I'm going to keep everything as it is because I'm in that mode. And if it had just happened like 4 or 5 minutes in, I'd just start over. But I've already got the flow of what I was talking about, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it. Otherwise, if it was further down, if I'd done all of them, then I could just film the end of it and hook them together. But that would look weird at this point. So anyway, couple things I wanted to tell you about. One thing, it's kind of in a variety of places, but I did the comparison between the elder and younger Futharks. That's over there on YouTube. It's also on the side panel of the blog. It's also over on Patreon with a link to the PDF I put. I couldn't embed it in over on Patreon. You're limited. It's like on Medium, you're limited by the kinds of things that you can do as far as the word processor part of it, the editor part of it. And I could not transfer over the PDF. It wouldn't do that. And so I haven't, if there's a way to do it, I haven't figured it out, but I don't see one. So what I did is I linked to it over on the blog and I put it there. So to follow along with the video, if you just want to open that up and look at that, you can do that. If you're interested in the comparison between the elder and younger Futharks. The runes essentially look different. Well, some of them don't, but some of them do in the younger Futhark. There's only 16 of them versus 24. And essentially the 16 runes that are there correspond in meaning really to those that are in the elder Futhark. I have always used the elder Futhark. I prefer it. Although, if you were to do a bind rune, theoretically, you could, say Hagalaz didn't suit you in the bind rune from the Elder Futhark, but Hagal from the younger Futhark did. You could use them interchangeably, is what I'm saying. So anyway, something to look at. Mercury and Jupiter go direct tomorrow on Tuesday. Maiden Moon is also tomorrow. We have a split moon on the full moon on Wednesday. It's in Aries because I believe it goes full at 7:57 in the morning, and then by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's gone from Aries to Taurus. So you're going to have an interesting, depending on the type of energy you want to work with. If you're going to wait till the evening time to go out and do something there, then you'll already be in Taurus at that point. So if that matters to you, if it doesn't, then if it's not factoring in, that's fine. So I think that's all I had to say about that. I've got those notes. I don't think I added anything else. So anyway, again, if this is your first time here, welcome. And click subscribe. I hope you'll do that and come back. And I do this on Mondays and Thursdays. The forecast itself, the big one, the esoteric forecast, goes up on the blog Monday through Friday. Esoteric influences go out on Saturday. And you can also get that in newsletter form, which you can sign up for over on the side panel. It's when you get to the blog, it's not readily visible. You just have to scroll down a little bit and you'll see it. You just put your email in there and it goes to my newsletter software, and then you just get the esoteric influences. And sometimes I put there's a calendar in there. There's the holidays and all of that. That's all in there. Sometimes I'll put other stuff in there having to do with herbs or magic or whatever. But otherwise, you get that. You can just get that in your inbox. And I know it's like, oh God, I've already got too much in my inbox. But anyway, that's there if you want to do it that way. Otherwise, it's over on the blog. I cross-post it over on Medium, and so you can see it for a variety of places. But anyhow, the rune that I had pulled from the bag was Fehu. That's the first rune of the Elder Futhark. It means cattle and wealth. It's wealth that's movable. So you're talking about the transactional nature of life. it can also mean life force. It's very powerful. It's the sending rune in magic. You could chant Fehu to cast your intention, in other words. Any of these runes are useful in magic, especially if you combine them together in the form of a bind rune. And then then we had Rubeus and we haven't had Rubeus in a while, but Rubeus is the geomancy rune for misuse of force. It's considered an evil influence. It's considered there's another geomancy rune, a couple of them, Pur and Puella. They're each other's complements. Pur is the scattered little boy energy, and Puella is the scattered little girl energy. So you can see the trouble that it can cause, but it's generally not so much that, you have to really. I was a Puella. My focus was everywhere. Very interested in all kinds of things. With little boys, with Pur, they're going to get into things. I raised 2 boys, so I know what that's like. And but it doesn't mean that they're doing things that are bad. When you take it to the level of Rubeus, its complement is Albus, or wisdom, or sage. This is the other side of the coin. You can almost look at it in terms of spirit versus ego. And here with Rubeus, you're talking about somebody that is, or an influence that is quite well. It really just centers on misuse of force, and however far they want to take that, right? And so that's an interesting thing to think about if you're thinking about Fehu in terms of money or that type of wealth. Now, Fehu can involve all kinds of expressions of wealth that are not tangible, have nothing to do with money or power or anything else. But paired with Rubeus, what are we doing to misuse that? What is happening, or are we witnessing it in our world? Right now, we're having such a collective experience that it really, I find that it can really impact these readings. You can look at them in terms of very personal issues as well, but unfortunately we can also apply that to what we're all dealing with together collectively, whether it's the political situation, whether it's the rise of conspiracy thinking that is not true, that some people are grabbing onto and then committing crimes and insurrection and all of this because they believe this stuff. This twisted ideas that are out there right now that literally have no basis in fact, but a small number of people seeking power have basically inserted themselves in a propagandist way into people's lives, and so the more vulnerable to this among us are believing it and then acting upon it. So you see a lot of families that are being disrupted by it. You see kids whose parents they just view them as gone off the deep end, or vice versa. The kids have gone off the deep end and the parents don't know what to do. It's a very difficult situation. And so it's one where the collective aspect of self is coming in and impacting each individual aspect, you see. Here we start out the cards with, and again, if this is your first time here, I have to remember what I said before and not repeat myself this time again and again. But if this is your first time here, what I do is I'll draw 3 cards of influence, and then I'll do a card that challenges us, and then one that benefits us. And as I was saying in the beginning, I haven't drawn the benefit card yet. So we started out with the 9 of Pentacles. We see a woman in her bubble, basically, in her garden. She's out with her falcon. She's a woman of means, clearly. You can see her pentacles around her. You can see these, I believe, are grapes around her. Grapes indicate abundance. Now, this can mean that she's put in the time, she's put in the effort, she's gained her wealth, maybe she's living comfortably in say she looks like she's maybe in her 40s or 50s maybe. It doesn't look like she's older than that, so maybe she's not retired yet, but she's living comfortably. So her life is such that in a sense there's There's with the 9 that you can think of endings, you can think of spirituality, you can think of generosity. So is she generous with her what she's learned? Is she, because see, wealth can be all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be tangible objects. It doesn't have to be money. It can be the wealth of position to help other people, to help them rise up. She could express generosity by maybe donating to causes. She could express herself in a variety of ways, maybe with her time, with her wisdom. But I don't know. We'll just have to see. The next card is Justice. From the Major Arcana, that's card 11. And card 11, now 11 is a master number for illumination and awakening. So does she need to awaken out of the bubble? Did she get this by a misuse of force? Is that what Rubius is talking about here? In other words, how did she catalyze the life force in a way that brought this wealth to her? Here we see Lady Justice sitting on her throne. You see the black, or not the black, the red drape behind her. She's also wearing the same color on her robes. You see her crown, denoting authority. Also denoting justice from spirit. Now you take a look at the Major Arcana cards, you're looking at soul archetype cards. So these are really messages from spirit that are helping to guide us in the overall archetypes of our lives. Are we going to be fair? Are we going to be just? Are we going to be balanced? We see the sword of justice upright towards spirit, and we see the scales in her left hand. So in her projective hand, you see the power of truth, the power of integrity, the power of honor. Did she get there that way? Maybe. Maybe not. Enter the Queen of Swords. And as I said in the last one, I love the Queen. My first attempt at this anyway, the last one. I love the queens in the decks. They have such power, associated with whatever elemental sign they're expressing here. And in this case, this is the air element with swords. We see her high above everyone else. She's got her sword raised again in the same manner that Lady Justice does. She's an older woman in authority, maybe similar to this woman. But instead of being comfortable, she's sitting above it all in the midst, and she's cutting in the midst of all of these clouds here. She's cutting through deception. She's taking no prisoners. She doesn't suffer fools gladly. You see the X down here, similar to Gebo in the Elder Futhark, which is balanced energy exchange. It's the gift of reciprocity. But it's also Kenaz in all directions, so it's expressing the light of spirit outward. So you're essentially, rather than having the ego be reactive and react all over the place, and everything being subjective to whatever you think should be or whatever your needs are, there's a higher purpose involved here with the Queen. And she's offering balance and justice and integrity. You can see her hand reaching out in offering. But the reciprocity of it all is that she expects the same from others. Now, my favorite deck, as I said in my first attempt of this reading, is the Toth Tarot. And here's how Lady Frida Harris painted the Queen of Swords. So it's an off with your head moment. It's like, you will be honest, you will have integrity, you will deal fairly in righteousness with people, or off with your head, basically. Here she's exhausted, she's reclining in the clouds, the sword in one hand, and the off with her head, the head of the lion in the other, on her crystal throne. I love this card. I just love it. but basically what we're talking about then in terms of the three cards of influence, in terms of Fehu and wealth and Rubius and the misuse of force, clearly the second two cards, Justice and the Queen, are demanding that we live in balance and we live in justice, and that we elevate the discourse basically to one that's based on fundamental truth, instead of all of the nonsense that's being disseminated and has been since what, 2015 maybe. You started to see during that campaign time for the 2016 election, you saw a plethora of deceptive types of stuff on social media, on other websites, on YouTube, where people are talking about stuff that's just out and out lies as if it's complete fundamental truth, and expecting everybody to believe it. Well, you had the vulnerable among us who did. And they were vulnerable to this kind of stuff. It's fear-based. And because it was constant, it was hypnotic. And so therefore it twisted people who were willing to be twisted based on fear. They think that they're, getting the scoop, they're getting the information they need, when in fact they're being manipulated by people that are literally embodying the essence of Rubius in their expression, in how they wish to interact and transact with others. That is the intention that they're casting. It's one to manipulate and to deceive and to get everybody to react in fear, and believe all of this outrageous stuff that on its surface, if you were just walking by, you'd say, what's that? That's ridiculous. But when you get a steady diet of it all day long online, when you see this, when you go to and talk to other people that you know that are involved in this, eventually you become so saturated, you become brainwashed by it all. And that's basically, now then you're settled into your bubble and you think everything is just fine, when it is not. Not in the slightest. You think you're on the right track when in fact you're not. So collectively and individually, that's what we're seeing and what some people are experiencing, and hopefully, seeing beyond it at some point and saying, no, I'm going to reject this out of hand. But we'll see. Now, the challenge card, the Ten of Swords, I know this looks bad, but really it's not. It's actually a very positive card. The 10, if you reduce it to, and this is where I froze my screen. If you reduce it, here's the 10, okay, in Roman numeral. If you were to terminate the ends, though, you have the rune Dagaz. And to me, Dagaz represents, it's a very crude drawing of it, Dagaz represents one period ending and another beginning. And so, if you let go of the illusion of security and understand the truth of how you got there, then maybe you can let go of the perceptions that are actually destroying you, and you can let the light return. You see, night is lifting. You don't see the sun, but you see it reflected in the golden sky there. And even though the mountains are there, and you see that there are challenges ahead, the water is calm. The emotions are calm. The emotions have settled. You've gone as far as you go, and you have to begin anew. And you have to let go of all the perceptions. We saw that in the previous card, the Nine of Swords, where the person is sitting up in bed, they've got their hands over their eyes, they've awakened from the nightmare. You see the swords all in line with one another, so they're putting the perceptions in order, and here you let them go and you begin anew. So even if this doesn't have to do with the conspiracy stuff that's going on, perhaps your life has been going along very, very well, and then all of a sudden you wake up to something. Maybe something has happened. Maybe something's happened with your health with respect to the COVID virus. Maybe it's related to that, where suddenly you understand that there's some truth about this that you didn't understand before, and that kept you in the bubble of your own perception, and now you can't ignore it any longer. And so maybe it's a situation that's come in other words, that's made you wake up to what's really happening. Or it could just simply be that as more information has come in and you see the cause and effect of not believing it play out, suddenly you awaken to what the real truth is, to the injustice of all of that, and how the awakening has to do with the higher level of spirit informing us as to what actually justice is, versus the ego, either your own or that of others that seem to want to manipulate everyone these days. So the challenge is to let that go, isn't it? Because perception is a tough thing to let go of, isn't it? I wrote a book, Shifting Perception, Transmuting Ego into Spirit. The last book was Herbal Magica, which is it's sort of a correspondence book for herbs and in both magical and medicinal uses, but which is why it's called Herbal Magica instead of Herbal Medica, or Materia Medica. Prior to that, I wrote Shifting Perception, and what that deals with is transmuting ego into spirit, letting spirit control the course of your life instead of allowing the reactive ego to make real all this nonsense that is also projected by ego. You can live there, or you can live above it all and understand the truth of it. And that, it seems to me, what maybe this reading is really about. Otherwise, you're open to others, or you're open to yourself misusing force, the force of perception on others that is deceptive and dishonorable and twisted. See, and then the benefit then is you can heal, both internally and externally with others. Here you have the Two of Cups. Cups reflects emotions. It reflects the water element. And so a change in this regard would happen. You see the caduceus here, and you see the winged sun up here. That's healing. The projective side of self, the man, if you want to look at this in terms of polarity, projective, receptive, reaches out his hand to the receptive side of self in healing. The emotional dynamic within, the emotional polarity, bringing things into balance so that love can return, so that reciprocity can return. You heal the rift within and without. So this is a really interesting reading to start the week off with. Again, in terms of Fehu and Rubius, that's just really fascinating that those two combine today. Because I really think collectively we're seeing a misuse of perception that's benefiting the people that are doing it in a way that has controlled the populace here. Most of us, we just want to get on with our lives. We want the virus behind us, but that's not going to happen now, because you've had way too many people, both in the last administration, the president himself, who undermined all of that, undermined the truth of the matter, undermined everyone's perceptions so that, or at least some people's perceptions, so that they don't believe what they need to believe. And in doing so, now you have people taking weapons into school board meetings. You have people coming on to, they've had to lock down schools because they've come on campus trying to bother people, going after teachers, going after administrators, going after students, doing all of this. I've seen video of moms walking their little ones, their first and second graders, kindergartners, whatever, to the bus or down the street to school or wherever they're going, but it's to school, something school related. And you've got these other moms that are walking along screaming at them, telling them to take the masks off and all of that. So you see this perception over on one side that seeks to harm. If they want to have those beliefs, have them, but just don't harm anybody with it. Keep it to yourself. But you see, that's not what's going on. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose is to disrupt, and to try to disrupt the perceptions of others. And that's where Rubius comes in. That's where the misuse of force comes in. And so, in order to gain power and control of others, we have to control perception. And that's what I think this reading is about. And instead, you have to have enough discernment to cut through the crap and know that you're being sold a bill of goods, and by people who just simply wish to remain in power. They didn't remain in power, but that's not stopping them, to continue to lie, to continue to try to control perception. So if you're experiencing this and you know better, then continue to know better. Continue to know that this is nonsense, and that it's being governed by a certain group of people that want to control everything and want to have all the power and authority and control in terms of an authoritarian type of an experience versus one that's democratic and based on fairness and justice and the rule of law. They don't want that. They want to upend all of that, which is what we witnessed for those 4 years during that administration. But realistically, what was truly happening is the rich were getting richer, and everybody else, was being harmed by that, culminating in a virus that comes out that then, instead of the response that could have happened, it did not. And again, this is about perception. She lives in a bubble. Maybe it was earned, maybe it was not. But if it's talking about the bubble of perception, then she needs to get out of that bubble and come back into real life and understand what's been happening all this time and reject it out of hand. And it's a challenge, isn't it? It's a challenge to let go of perceptions that have been carefully cultivated in you by others, especially when it's done in a cult-like manner, because that's what we have now. So anyhow, what a way to start a Monday. But it's alerting us to something. It's alerting us to take another look at what's going on through this lens, to try to understand the greater Rubius energy that's been at work all this time. So anyhow, we'll talk again Thursday, and we'll see where this goes on Thursday. Maybe some of it will resolve. Maybe over the next few days, some information's going to come out that's going to clarify things even more. We'll see. Sometimes when I get a reading like this, you can see things start to come out in the news about one thing or another, and maybe it'll add some clarity to the whole situation for you. So take care of yourselves, and enjoy the moon, and if you work a ritual, maybe incorporate something there about letting go of the Mercury retrograde stuff and moving on into something better. Try to resolve any intentions you set on the new moon. Perhaps you'll see them come to fruition on Wednesday. If not, check in with the progress made and see how it's going. In full clarity. But that's the thing. We're coming upon a full moon. And that is, that's the time for clarity. It's not the time for deception. So all things will be revealed maybe. Maybe this is the beginning energy for that, this reading. So take care of yourselves, and we'll talk again Thursday. Thanks so much for coming by. And again, click subscribe. I'd love you to do that, and come back Thursday and see what we've got that day for you. So take care and be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.